Algebra students, today we're talking about section 4.4, which is point slope form. Now, one thing that you're going to notice about point slope form is we're going to have a point, which is an ordered pair, and then a slope, which is m. We are literally going to take those two numbers and we are going to put them in point slope form. You are now going to skip the section that says solve for y review. We'll come back to that later. Point slope form is this formula right here. You need to write down y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. From here, what we are going to do is we are going to find our slope and we are going to find our point. Okay, so some things that I want you to be aware of is if I go through, and I'm going to highlight these for you, you can see that m is just located right here. That is in front of my parentheses. You can also see that this x1 and this y1 goes together. That's my ordered pair. Notice that I also have just a regular x and y. Those are going to stay as x and y. And finally, I want you to notice that these are both negative signs. So it is the opposite of x and the opposite of y. Okay, let's go through these and solve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my point, which is, in this case, is going to be the opposite of -1, which is just 1, and then the opposite of -10, which is also 10. My slope, then, is just listed right in front of my parentheses, and so that's going to be -3. Okay, so let's do another one. Again, I've got the opposite of -8, which is 8, and then I've got the opposite of 7, which is going to be a -7. That is my ordered pair, and my slope here is -2. Finally, on the third one, again, I'm going to have the opposite of 3, which is a -3, and then the opposite of a -9, which is +9, and then my slope is just 1/2. Now, remember, my slope is typically a fraction, so if I want to go through and put like 3/1, that's fine because it might be easier for you to graph. Speaking of graphing, let's go ahead and look at the next section. When I am going to be graphing, what I want to do is I want to start, oh wait, we missed one, didn't we? We got to go back. I've got, oh, this one's important because I have a -1. There is nothing in front of that y. So instead of nothing there, I'm actually going to put a 0. Okay, and then my slope is just 4. Okay, speaking of graphing, we are going to graph each equation. Notice it says point, slope, domain, and range on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and fill mine in. Point, slope, domain, and range. I need all those things. So my point, since this is point slope form, is going to be 3, 1. My slope is going to be 5. We'll talk about domain and range in just a second. So I'm going to go over 3, up 1, and I'm literally going to plot that point. Now my slope I know is going to be, remember I said it's a fraction, so 5/1. So in this case, I'm going to go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1. And I always want to go to the right. Well, I can't go up right anymore, and I need 3 points on my line to make it a line. So I'm going to go back to my original, and I'm going to go down 5, and in this case, I'm going to go left 1. Because if I go down 5, that's a -5, and if I go left 1, that's a -1. And a negative over a negative does give me a positive. Now I can just make my line right through my points. My domain and my range. Okay, so my domain and my range are my x values. What could I plug in for x? In this case, it's all reals or infinite solutions. What could I then get for y? Again, in this case, it's all reals or infinite solutions. Okay, so you will see over the course of time that we're going to have lots of different domains and ranges. But remember, domain is what we plug in for x. And my range is what we get out with y. Okay, so again, I'm going to do my point. So my point in this case on the second problem is going to be 2, 4. And my slope is going to be 3, or 3/1. So I'm going to start with going over 2, up 4, and plotting my point. Now that I have that, I can go up 3/1. Well, I can't because it doesn't fit on my graph. So I'm going to go negative, negative. So -3, -1, -3, -1. -3, -1. Okay, and then I can go ahead and graph my line. Ooh, that one's not very straight. Let's see if we can adjust that. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to again talk about my domain and my range. My domain is anything I can plug in for x. I could plug in anything here, so it's going to be infinite solutions or all real numbers. Same for my range. Moving on, I'm on the next page now, and I have the same options. I've got my point, I've got my slope, I've got my domain and my range. Well, I know I can go through and I'm going to do infinite solutions for all my domain and range. So you can go ahead and do that right now. My domain and my range are going to be infinite solutions. They're all real numbers for everything. Okay, we're going to be done with those. Now I find my point. Remember, it's the opposite of here, so it's going to be a +2, and it's the opposite of there, -3. So +2, -3, plot my point. Now my slope. Ooh, this one is a fraction. Fantastic. I'm going to go up 1 over 3. Now if I go back to my original, I'm going to go down 1 over 3. You'll start to see that my slopes become different based on what type of a fraction it is. Notice that 1/3 gets a lot closer to 0 than something like 3 over 1. So the closer to 0 it is, the closer to 0 the line is going to become. And infinity is going to be, what the higher the number gets is going to be more close to undefined. Okay, again, my point and my slope. So in this case, my point is going to be the opposite of 4, so a -4, and the opposite of a -4, which is a +4. And my slope is going to be a -2/3. So let's go ahead and plot. It's going to be a -4, +4, way up here in the corner. And from here, I'm going to go down 2 over 3. Down 2 over 3. I like to put as many points as I can because I think it's a lot easier than to draw my line. Okay. Moving down, ooh, we get things that are a little difficult here. So just when you think you're getting the hang of it. My domain and range is still going to be all reals or infinite solutions, so I'm not going to do those. But I am going to do my point and my slope. So my point on the first one, well, I know I have 3, but then remember there's nothing out in front, so that becomes 0. So over 3, up 0. My slope, the only thing I have for my slope is that little negative sign, whoops, out front right there. So that's actually a -1. So a -1 over 1 is going to be down 1 over 1. Remember, I always go to the right. So then I can go up 1, left 1, which is actually still a negative because it would be positive over a negative rather than a negative over a positive. And it is a negative slope, so it should go down in that direction. All right, next one, my ordered pair. There is nothing out here, which means the first order is 0. Then I have -5. Okay, my slope is going to be 1/5. So I have over 0 down 5. And then for my slope, I'm going to go up 1 over 5. Remember, it's going to be closer to 0 than 1/3 is. So it's going to be pretty flat. I can also go down 1 over 5. It just is not going to fit very well. It's going to be down there off my graph. And my line goes through. Okay, so a couple of things for you. If you need to go back and rewatch this video, please do so. You're going to have 2 things posted on Google Classroom. You're going to have a Quizlet Live that I want you to go through and match things. You're also going to have an IXL that I want you to go through and practice. Remember, it's only going to let you do 10 lessons, and then it's going to cut you off. So try to get like a 60% or higher on that. And then you have a worksheet in your packet. And the worksheet does have, looks like 24 graphs, which seems like a lot, but you guys have lots of time, and we want you to really understand how to graph these in point slope form. Other than that, have a great day.